Oh, we're live.
So I started the walk to Mordor again, and I'm halfway between Bree and Weathertop at the moment.
Very nice. So, right around the place where Pippin realizes he's not going to get second breakfast.
Yeah, and gets pelted on the head with an apple in the
In
movie.
the mood. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that conversation did not happen in the book. A lot of
No.
different ones did.
Yeah, Tolkien in the book has a very different way of establishing that, like, pragmatism Strider attitude. Also,
Yeah,
Strider in the book is much more of a dramatic bitch, so.
he's such a drama queen. Oh my god, they all are.
They
They
all
are.
are.
They are all such divas. They're fucking divas.
Yep.
I want to go spend a few months with our divas. What it was Gandalf whose responses we said should all end with bitch, didn't we?
I think we did, yes.
Was that us? Are we the canon instigators of that nonsense? Because I want to be.
I mean, if we didn't instigate it, we certainly perpetuate it.
Oh, we do. Do 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 do. Um, Dom Noble did a Patreon exclusive video about the Lord of the Rings Bakshi movie,
Nice.
and he's not a fan. I don't know if you can be a fan unless you like are 6,
Or
or
unless you saw it when you were 6.
and it left a very deep impression. And
Yeah,
even
it's one of
then,
those.
yeah, actually, that's what Bakshi is like entirely. Because I've watched
Yeah.
Wizards recently, and no, no.
I I don't remember who it was, but the first time I ever saw Wizards was with you at the old house, and there was somebody there watching it with us who was just progressively more and more horrified and like, "Didn't you say this was a kids movie?" And we were like, well, childhood was different in the 80s."
It really was. Oh man. But it's not just how horrifying it is, it's how poorly made it is. It's the weird juxtaposition of like they have a few different clips of like shitty animation that they use in every battle scene. Like the
Mm-hmm.
same monster comes charging at the screen a few times and it's the exact same cells, and then the incredibly elaborate backgrounds that are like posters that you'd hang up in your room because they're just that the cross hatchy goodness. And then the plot doesn't make any sense. If her father that was murdered was the president, why is she the queen? Queen of what? And
Queen
I
of the
found
Presidency.
a queen of the presidency, and I do not. They clearly didn't know how to write a woman because all they could think of for her to do was get kidnapped and scream a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
And be inexplicably attracted to the little garden gnome dude.
oh yeah, the self-insert garden gnome, yeah, with the marvelously uh uncreative name. Like I didn't. I think it's Avatar. I think they named
Mm-hmm.
it fucking Avatar, and I'm like, you thought
They
about
did,
that for
yes.
1 minute, didn't you?
There's also a part where he's talking to the villain and he's like, "I'm glad you changed your name so no one knows you're my brother." And it's like, you don't have a last name. His
But
name
that's
was
such
his
a
name also
badass
Avatar?
scene. He's like, I'm gonna be act like a fucking buffoon, and then he pulls out a gun and shoots him. And when you're 8, you're like, raw power to the goodness. The other thing I found myself doing this last rewatch was actually like relating to Black Wolf and being like, he's right.
I mean,
He
I
shouldn't be
only remember
using
that he
Nazi
was trying to
propaganda.
be a Nazi. Yeah, that part he was not right about.
he was not right about, but his motives weren't Nazi motives. He wanted the people he was in charge of. He wanted the people he ruled to have access to land that wasn't irradiated, so they wouldn't have mutant babies anymore. That's perfectly valid. That was his whole thing. I mean, he did want to wipe out the fairies that lived in the non-irradiated places, but they never established that he'd like, I don't know, that they tried to give the mutants a place that wasn't irradiated, and that failed.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Sort of a
glad.
Scar storyline.
Yeah, yeah, and only more so because you're like, yeah, the hyenas deserve to live someplace that was. Um, you got the feeling that Scar fucked over his constituents, whereas
Oh, he
Black Wolf
did.
probably wasn't going to.
I mean, hard to know on account of he got shot.
Yeah. And Peace was my favorite character, and I'd forgotten that he just kind of dies in a really like half-assed way. And there's the bit where Avatar conjures up a poncho for Eleanor, and her wings are just gone, and you're like, she's also still not wearing boots or anything. She's just barefoot in the snow with a poncho.
Yeah, well, you know. Um,
And I have no idea where she keeps her sword. And that actually matters because all of this being said, I still promised my 8-year-old self that I would someday dress as Eleanor at a con just once. And so I need to know where I'm putting that goddamn sword.
um, good luck with that. I think that she has a magical pocket dimension that she puts it in when she's not using it. That's not a
Right.
euphemism, or
Yeah.
is it?
No. 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 She's got more than one magical pocket dimension. Um. Shit. Oh, and I also, you remember the bit where she accidentally animates a gargoyle with her rage? It's a
No,
bit
but
in the
that
middle.
sounds
It's such a
metal.
it's a throwaway scene. It's during one of her kidnappings. I want to make a gargoyle purse. It's a very recognizable form, and I want to carry that around with my like phone and shit. I've
Nice.
got plans. I've got plans.
I support it.
Thank you. I'm too curvy, so I'm going to pretend that I'm somebody else, and I'm going to encourage her to wear the damn outfit no matter what size she is because she's gorgeous. It's so much easier when it's somebody else. We skipped the prologue, right?
Yes, I believe we do.
Because concerning hobbits, etc., the ordering of the Shire, all that good stuff, not necessary at this time. We could just read concerning hobbits if you like.
I mean, we certainly could. Hang on, I need to do math. One moment. 19 times 2 is 38. 101 minus 3 is. That's not right. Hang on. I need to make a neckline.
What was the math?
101 minus 38, but actually 39, so it's divisible by 2, which it would be 31. Okay.
No, it's not.
101 minus 39 is 62. Divided by 2 is 31.
Yes, yes, it is. I missed the divided by 2 part.
Yes, yeah, that is quite critical. Otherwise, it would be very wrong.
Honey. All
How
right,
about
let's start with
that?
the long expected party. We know all about concerning hobbits. We're not concerned about the hobbits.
We've been concerning the hobbits for years.
We know about their furry feet, which no one has ever actually put the furriness of their feet on film very well. Like it's supposed to be enough fur to keep them warm.
Yeah, they didn't really quite go far enough then in the movies.
Nope. They might have in the Rankin Bass. I need to watch the Rankin Bass again, or just make Dom Noble watch it and review it for us. Chapter 1: A Long Expected Party. When Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 111st birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. Bilbo was very rich and very peculiar, and had been the wonder of the Shire for 60 years, ever since his remarkable disappearance and unexpected return. The riches he had brought back from his travels had now become a local legend, and it was popularly believed, whatever the old folk might say, that the hill at Bag End was full of tunnels stuffed with treasure. And if that was not enough for fame, there was also his prolonged vigor to marvel at. Time wore on, but it seemed to have little effect on Mr. Baggins. At 90, he was much the same as at 50. At 99, they began to call him well preserved, but unchanged would have been nearer the mark. There were some that shook their heads and thought this was too much of a good thing. It seemed unfair that anyone should possess apparently perpetual youth as well as reputedly inexhaustible wealth. It will have to be paid for, they said. It isn't natural, and trouble will come of it.
And they
But
weren't wrong.
Yeah, they weren't wrong at all. Which is kind of sad because that sounds like a very killjoy kind of segment of the population.
Yeah, we hate it when those killjoy segments are correct about. It's like, stop being such a downer. You're right, but stop being such a downer.
I
But
didn't want to hear
also,
it.
have we talked about the fact that okay, so Bilbo only lived to 130 because of the ring,
Yeah.
right? The old Took lived to 131. How? What's his story?
Well, actually, you've got it reversed. The old Took was 130 and Bilbo was 131 because he
That's
he
right.
was
I
like,
do have it
I
reversed
passed
because
the old Took.
yes.
Well, I mean, it's in the name, isn't it? He was the old Took. It says in Concerning Hobbits that, see, I knew we should have read it. That they frequently lived to and past the age of 100 fairly easily. It's just 130 was rare, but anyone dying within those 30 years was considered perfectly normal. And I think the old Duke was just long lived.
Well, fair enough.
And I think Bilbo might have made it almost that far on his own because they did talk about how he's never faded, he's never felt ring wraithish, he didn't use the ring enough for it to fuck him over that way. But
it kind of kept him the same, but it didn't necessarily make him live longer.
yeah. And in the movies, they make him age at an accelerated rate afterwards. And I'm like, I don't think he ever says in the book that he aged at an accelerated rate. I think he just
kind of started aging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a really batshit movie, some kind of stupid rom-com about someone who's transported in time and his girl, the girl he loved had lived that whole time and was an old woman now, and so they made one of the plot devices that his time travel, like his inner chronological meter, figured out that he was out of sync and just aged him rapidly so that when he found her at the end, they could both be old and just like drool on the furniture together.
That seems weird. I mean, I like the approach that they take in the first What We Do in the like What We Do in the Shadows original movie, where the vampire finds his lost love in the nursing home and he's like, people say, what is this 85-year-old lady doing with a man 3 times her age? But age is just a number.
I loved that. I loved that. Even though the movie had a lot more cringe humor than the show does.
Yeah.
It was still it had a lot of heart. Unfortunately, we have lost our, what is that, Hulu subscription? It went bye-bye.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say lost it as in you forgot the password because you can reset those.
No, Jason always makes sure we get Hulu when they're having their annual much, much cheaper sale. And that hasn't started yet. So we were
yes.
2 episodes into What We Do in the Shadows, and we stopped having the ability to watch it. And I'm like, season 5 is important. Important to me. Yeah. But so far, trouble had not come. And as Mr. Baggins was generous with his money, most people were willing to forgive him his oddities and his good fortune. Big of them.
Yes, very kind.
He remained on visiting terms with his relatives, except, of course, the Sackville Bagginses. And he had many devoted admirers among the hobbits of poor and unimportant families. But he had no close friends until some of his younger cousins began to grow up. The eldest of these, and Bilbo's favorite, was young Frodo Baggins. When Bilbo was 99, he adopted Frodo as his heir and brought him to live at Bag End, and the hopes of the Sackville Bagginses were finally dashed. Bilbo and Frodo happened to have the same birthday, September 22nd. Now, I got married on September 22nd.
I do. I was there.
You presided, and
I did.
September 22nd is delightfully important. And I was looking at the appendices a couple months ago and realized that their calendar is completely out of whack with ours. Completely.
Oh no.
Yeah, like the months are not even remotely the same. And it's like the changing the names of everything to sound more English when he translated. He translated all the months too, so I don't know if he managed to make it line up or if it's just in a different you know what I mean?
I would assume he made it line up because that's the sort of pedantic dude he was.
Right. But if I find out September 22nd is actually like August 31st or something.
I would just not look any further into it and live in blissful ignorance if it was me.
You called it September 22nd. We know it's in fall. That's all we need. Everyone's got a canon birthday except Smeagol, who's the only one who won't shut up about his fucking birthday, but he never tells us when it is.
That is an interesting point, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I can come up with is that it must have been in summer because he was out, fishing with his friend. But I'd love to know Smeagol's birthday.
Watch him have been ice fishing.
That's why you get really scared when your friend is dragged to the bottom. Like, shit! You okay down there, Dale? I'll knock a hole for you if you come up here. You had better come and live here, Frodo, my lad, said Bilbo one day, and then we can celebrate our birthday parties comfortably together. At that time, Frodo was still in his tweens, as the hobbits called the irresponsible 20s between childhood and coming of age at 33. Humans should have the exact same system because there ain't nobody in their 20s who's come of age.
Nope.
Yeah. I speak as one who had babies in my 20s. You're not old enough. 12 more years passed. Each year the Bagginses had given very lively combined birthday parties at Bag End, but now it was understood that something quite exceptional was being planned for that autumn. Bilbo was going to be 11, a rather curious number, and a very respectable age for a hobbit. The old Took himself had only reached 130. And Frodo was going to be 33, an important number, the date of his coming of age. Tongues began to wag in Hobbiton and Bywater, and rumor of the coming event travelled all over the Shire. The history and character of Mr. Bilbo Baggins became once again the chief topic of conversation, and the older folk suddenly found their reminiscences in welcome demand. Nice when that happens. I'm definitely not that age yet, or never will be because my kids are not that respectful. No one had a more attentive audience than old Ham Gamgee, commonly known as the Gaffer. I don't know that that's... I guess that's preferable if your name is Ham.
I mean, his full name is Hamfast.
It's even worse.
Yeah. Let's stick with the Gaffer. I think that's probably preferable.
Yeah, I'm the Gaffer. I gaff. I gaff like you wouldn't believe.
Well, and to be fair, it's short for, it's like a slurring of grandfather.
That's right. Whose grandfather is he, though?
Me.
Right? Have Samwise's brothers had kids? Probably. I haven't looked at the timeline or the family trees lately.
Either that or it's more of a nickname of respect.
Right? Like Granny Weatherwax.
Yeah.
Just not technically.
Right. You don't have to
You're everybody's Gaffer.
Yeah.
Hey, if you had a Hobbit nickname, or a nickname of one of the existing Hobbits, what would you choose?
I don't know. Do you know what you would choose?
Not Farmer Maggot.
Sure.
Even though he's cool.
Oh, he's great. I wouldn't want his name.
No, I don't. I don't know what my Hobbit name would be. I'm sure there's a little internet thing that you can spin a wheel and find your Hobbit name, but...
Oh, almost certainly.
Yeah. He held forth at the Ivy Bush, a small inn on the Bywater Road, and he spoke with some authority, for he had tended the garden at Bag End for 40 years, and had helped old Holman in the same job before that. Now that he was himself growing old and stiff in the joints, the job was mainly carried out by his youngest son, Sam Gamgee. Both father and son were on very friendly terms with Bilbo and Frodo. They lived on the hill itself in number 3 Bagshot Road, just below Bag End. Who lives in number 2?
I don't know. Probably one of Sam's older brothers.
Ah, there you go. Could be the Widow Rumble, though.
Oh, it could be the Widow Rumble.
Could be the Widow Rumble. A very nice, well-spoken gentle hobbit is Mr. Bilbo, as I've always said, the Gaffer declared, with perfect truth. For Bilbo was very polite to him, calling him Master Hamfast, and consulting him constantly upon the growing of vegetables. In the matter of roots, especially potatoes, the Gaffer was recognized as the leading authority by all in the neighborhood, including himself. But what about this Frodo that lives with him? Asked old Noakes of Bywater. Baggins is his name, but he's more than half a brandy-buck, they say. It beats me why any Baggins of Hobbiton should go looking for a wife away there in Buckland, where folks are so queer. And no wonder they're queer, put in Daddy Two-Foot, the gaffer's next-door neighbor. Maybe it's Daddy Two-Foot.
Perhaps it is. Also, I would consider that as a Hobbit nickname.
Daddy?
Daddy Two-Foot.
Daddy Two-Foot. It's a great nickname.
It's better than Farmer Maggot. I'm still not completely sold.
Right? Yeah. Do you remember when we picked nicknames from Blackadder? I don't remember what yours was.
Angus.
I was Mad Jack McMad.
Yep.
That's right. How is the mighty army, the Clan McAdder? They're both fine. I always thought Jamie and Angus were such fine boys. Angus is a girl. That's right.
Yep. And your friend who got us into it was Amy Wamey.
That's right. Amy Wamey and Claire's little brother was, he couldn't decide between some tiny tit and a beard. And I can't remember what the other one was that he liked. We were a cult of four. Anyway, so Daddy Two-Foot's in the running for your Hobbit name, huh?
Possibly, although I don't know. I don't really have daddy energy, so perhaps not.
But the Two-Foot, you could keep the Two-Foot.
I can keep the Two-Foot.
Yeah, we'll find you a first name. Let's keep going. If they live on the wrong side of the Brandywine River and ride again the old forest, that's a dark, bad place if half the tales be true. You're right, Dad, said the gaffer. Not that the Brandybucks of Buckland live in the old forest, but they're a queer breed, seemingly. They fool about with boats on that big river. That isn't natural. Small wonder that trouble came of it, I say. But be that as it may, Mr. Frodo is as nice a young hobbit as you could wish to meet. Very much like Mr. Bilbo, and in more than looks. After all, his father was a Baggins. Decent, respectable hobbit was Mr. Drogo Baggins. There was never much to tell of him, till he was drownded. Drownded, said several voices. They had heard this and other darker rumors before, of course, but hobbits have a passion for family history, and they were ready to hear it again. Well, so they say, said the gaffer. You see, Mr. Drogo, he married poor Miss Primula Brandybuck. She was our Mr. Bilbo's first cousin on the mother's side, her mother being the youngest of the old Took's daughters, and Mr. Drogo was his second cousin. So Mr. Frodo is his first and second cousin, once removed either way, as the saying is, if you follow me. Sounds a bit incestuous, but I'm sure it adds up to not terribly so.
No, yeah, because if they're his cousins on different sides, like they weren't actually related to each other, just to
right.
Bilbo.
In the same way that you are my sibling and Mike Trout is my brother, and the two of you are in no way related at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Oh. And Mr. Drogo was staying at Brandy Hall with his father-in-law, old Mr. Gorboduc, as he often did after his marriage, him being partial to his victuals, and old Gorboduc keeping a mighty generous table. And he went out, boating, on the Brandywine River, and he and his wife were drownded. Poor Mr. Frodo, only a child and all. I've heard they went on the water after dinner in the moonlight, said old Noakes, and it was Drogo's weight as sunk the boat. And I heard she pushed him in, and he pulled her in after him, said Sandyman, the Hobbiton miller. You shouldn't listen to all you hear, Sandyman, said the gaffer, who did not much like the miller. Okay, so have we talked about the theory before?
Which theory?
The theory that the reason Gollum didn't didn't chase Bilbo, like stopped chasing Bilbo, is because he thought he'd gotten him. He got, like, the theory is that he got as far as Buckland, and he heard someone talking about Baggins getting, as those two were getting in the boat, and so he swam out in the river and drowned the two of them in the dark, thinking that he'd gotten the right Baggins, and just found out later that he was wrong. And that would explain, like, if people are talking about pushing and pulling, it's because they might have seen a struggle, and that would have been Gollum.
I have never heard this theory, but what a theory, my God.
Right? It doesn't, I don't know that it holds up. There's like some things that don't work with the timeline, but I dig it. It's a good headcanon. Because otherwise, why drown Frodo's parents? Because bad shit happens, and this is a real world. But yeah, I kind of claim it as a headcanon. I won't defend it if someone attacks it, but I still think it's pretty awesome. If someone knows better and tells me, I'll be like,
you got it.
Still, right? It'd be a neat explanation.
It would be.
There isn't no call to go of talking, of pushing and pulling. Boats are quite tricky enough for those that sit still without looking further for the cause of trouble. Anyway, there was this Mr. Frodo, left an orphan and stranded, as you might say, among those queer Bucklanders, being brought up anyhow in Brandy Hall. A regular warren, by all accounts. Old Master Gorbadoc never had fewer than a couple of 100 relations in the place. Mr. Bilbo never did a kinder deed than when he brought the lad back to live among decent folk. But I reckon it was a nasty shock for those Sackville Bagginses. They thought they were going to get Bag End that time when he went off and was thought to be dead. Then he comes back and orders them off. And he goes on living and living, never looking a day older, bless him. And suddenly he produces an heir, and has all the papers made out proper. The Sackville Bagginses won't never see the inside of Bag End now, or it is to be hoped not. There's a tidy bit of money tucked away up there, I hear tell, said a stranger, a visitor on business from Michel Delving in the West Farthing. All the top of your hill is full of tunnels packed with chests of gold and silver, and jewels, by what I've heard. I love how he spells it phonetically. Like, the stranger didn't say jewels, he said jewels. Jools.
Well, it makes me wonder, like, yeah, how did Tolkien think it should be pronounced by more, educated folk?
Right.
Because I pronounce it Jules.
You pronounce it with two O's?
Yeah.
Jules.
Jules.
Yeah, Jules. Probably we're doing it wrong.
I mean,
Jules.
Jewel. I don't know. I don't know what the
And now it doesn't sound like a word anymore. Then you've heard more than I can speak to, answered the gaffer. I know nothing about jewels. Mr. Bilbo is free with his money, and there seems to be no lack of it. But I know of no tunnel making. I saw Mr. Bilbo when he came back, a matter of 60 years ago, when I was a lad. I'd not long come prentice to old Holman, him being my dad's cousin. But he had me up at Bag End, helping him to keep folks from trampling and traipsing all over the garden while the sale was on. And in the middle of it all, Mr. Bilbo comes up the hill with a pony and some mighty big bags and a couple of chests. Though I don't doubt they were mostly full of treasure he had picked up in foreign parts, where there be mountains of gold, they say, but there wasn't enough to fill tunnels. But my lad Sam will know more about that. He's in and out of Bag End, crazy about stories of the old days he is, and he listens to all Mr. Bilbo's tales. Mr. Bilbo has learned him his letters, meaning no harm, mark you, and I hope no harm will come of it. And it's 8, so we're going to stop with that incredibly
Incredibly who to what?
froze. You froze for a moment. What's up?
You froze. But yes. You said we're going to stop with that incredibly, and that's when you froze.
Incredibly anti-intellectual
Yes.
comments.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, I shall see you later in the week, and
They're predicting foul weather, but I hope the roads at least are clear so you can come down because Jason's adding to the feast this year. He saw Max Miller make a cranberry apple pie and was
ooh,
inspired, and so that's on the menu.
that sounds delightful. I will do everything I can to be there.
Yep. It's gonna be the turkey and the ham and the gravy and the taters and the green beans and the what the hell else do we have? Pecan pie and the cran apple pie. Oh, and the dinner rolls and the challah. And yeah, it's just gonna be a lot of food. So come help eat it.
Yes.
Cuidado.
Yamas.
I
Love
love
you.
you.
Mwah.